everybody. Today we're going to be reading There's No Escape, Yandere SCP Foundation ex-listener up in here. Oh my goodness, that was a little long, but you know what? I got through it. Anyways, without further ado, last point where we left off. Basically, if we don't remember too well, Dr. Glass kind of, how I say this, Dr. Glass is now beginning to be a creep, as we remember, right? And he's just looking up a lot of information about us and some trauma stuff we went through about our family, you know, dying of a car crash, and how her father was trying to keep away news reporters and stuff because, you know, it was a sensitive time. You know, I don't think I would want reporters immediately right after the crash to, you know what I'm saying? And there was a whole recording about it. He watched it, and then something like that. Then Dr. Glass, you know, simping for us, but sleeping with what was her name again? I think her name is Dr. Addison. So Dr. Addison, the whore, per se, in this, basically kind of, you know, it's like towards Dr. Glass and all that, right? But anyways, after their little interaction and him just, you know, quote unquote dreading it, he sees Dr. Clev and Dr. Bright dealing with freaking our roommate, right? Or old roommate that was supposed to, you know, get quote unquote be free, but you know they ain't gonna be free. They're gonna die. It's the termination day technically. So he literally video records them torturing and killing this poor soul after she literally savagely, may I say, was like, I'm the one who kissed YM first. Y'all will have no idea what her juicy lips is and shit like that. It's just to piss him off too. Like, damn. Oh, I love her for that. That shit was fucking hilarious. But anyways, Dr. Glass recorded them and basically used it as blackmail to use it against them. And Dr. Glass and Dr. Glass decided not to work together, but if they're going to work together ever again, they're probably going to take down Dr. Glass. And Dr. Bright gets an idea that if he gets all his work done over here and requests to help somewhere else where wine most likely is, then they're going to interact way more. And I'm like, that's kind of smart, but my guy has a freaking attention span of a 2-year-old, so it's not really easy as said. Anyways, now we can finally get to the... Alright, y'all, so we were now finally back in chapter 9. The fuck? Wine's POV. I lifted my head slightly as I groaned. My head, it's so fuzzy. I threw my legs over to the side of the bed and sat up. D-class food, someone yelled, pushing a tray and tray through the damn slot. I wonder how Lena's doing. She's dead. I sighed and walked over to the tray, picking it up, seeing bread and yogurt with orange juice. I love orange juice. I sat down on the floor and started to eat as I looked down at my scratched legs. They still hurt. I wonder why Dr. Iceberg was so mean. Maybe just a hard day, or maybe he didn't like me very much. I finished my food and rubbed my legs, trying to make the pain fade. I was snapped out of my thoughts when the door suddenly opened, revealing Dr. Iceberg. Fuck! I stood up and backed away a little, putting some distance between us. Calm down, I'm not gonna do anything, he said, closing the door behind him, keeping one of his hands behind his back. I looked at him and raised an eyebrow. Why would I believe you? I asked, looking towards the hand behind his back. What's behind your back? And then their friendo. Anyway, well, you kind of don't have a choice, he said as he pulled his hand from behind his back, showing a first aid kit. I gave him a confused look as he walked over to the bed. Come here, he said as I looked at him and shook my head no. I wasn't asking, he said, glaring at me as I shivered and walked over. Sit. he said, pointing to the bed as I quickly sat down. He bent down and lifted my pant leg up as I blushed. What are you? He stopped me. Sorry, he said as he opened the first aid kit. For what? I asked as he placed some antibiotic ointment on the scratches. For causing this. I had a rough day and took it out on you, he said as he placed a large bandage on the scratches. I giggled. That's okay. You have a lot on your plate. This bitch. That doesn't give him an excuse to hurt anybody, girl. And in real life, this does not give anybody an excuse. Even if you had a rough day, there is still no excuse of how you treat people terribly. I don't know why people think like this. This is not a correct way to think, and it's quite... For me, it's a way that's quite dangerous, because it can literally impose danger to some extent. So, please don't be thinking like that. There is absolutely no excuse why someone should be treating you like that. Especially if you don't barely know them. But even if you do know them, they should still not be treating you like that. I have no idea why we try and normalize that. That's not cool. Anyways, continuing on. I said as he nodded, standing up. Yeah, anyways, we need to get going, he said, looking away from me. I got off the bed, getting a little too close to Dr. Iceberg as he backed away, blushing a little. Guess I got too close. So, I'm guessing another text? I asked as he walked over to the door. Yes, he said as I nodded, following him as he grabbed the card from behind his neck and pressed it against the scanner. The door opened as he swiftly walked through with me, closing the door behind. So, you're a doctor around here, right? I asked, wanting to make conversation. Yes, why do you ask? He asked. I want to know what you do, or maybe what you study to get here. I asked, looking at him as he walked, making his baby blue hair bounce. I hummed softly as he thought of his answer. Well, I mostly do the paperwork for Dr. Gear, but I do some tests to lighten the load too. I study things in mechanical engineering, weapon development, emergency security detail, or more used to. He said, walking through the hallways. Man, that sounds like a lot. Probably why he's so stressed. What do you study, or used to? He asked as I smiled. I studied a lot of mathematics, physics, science, English, other languages, engineering, history, biology, and geography. A lot of stuff. I never got a degree in any of them, saying I didn't finish college. I said, smiling at the good time I had in college. May I ask why? He said. He asked. An accident that left me hospitalized for more than 2 months, I said, giving a sad smile as Dr. Iceberg seemed to tense up. We walked up to the big door I came in here as 2 guards approached us. Dr. Iceberg, I'm guessing you're here to transport the D class to another site, one guard said as another walked up to me with cuffs. Hands, he demanded as I extended my hands for them to be cuffed. That won't be needed, Dr. Iceberg said as the guard looked at him. But protocol... He was cut off by Dr. Iceberg, extending him his signature icy glare. That won't be needed, he said slowly. The guard shivered and backed away as Dr. Iceberg turned back to the other guard and started to talk to him about something. Sorry, I muttered to the guard that just got the cold shoulder from Dr. Iceberg. It's okay, he whispered back as I smiled at him. Dr. Iceberg turned back around and cleared his throat. Let's go, he said as I walked over to him. I feel bad for that guard. He didn't deserve to be bashed like that. A little bit. Maybe a little bit. We walked over to the door as it opened, revealing the normal snowy tundra I was exposed to when Dr. Gears and I first arrived. We walked through the snow as I shivered slightly. Sometimes I love the snow, but sometimes I hate it. I noticed Dr. Iceberg didn't seem to mind as he briskly walked over to a black truck. He quickly opened the door, looking at me, silently telling me to get in. I wonder where we're going. I got into the truck and sat down on one of the side seats. Dr. Iceberg closed the doors and sat next to me, making our shoulders touch. His shoulder is abnormally cold. The truck started to move as I clipped my seatbelt together. I have a question, I asked as he looked at me while clipping his belt. Yes, he asked. Sorry if it sounds offensive, but why are you so cold? I asked as he gave me a confused look, like mentally, or I cut his excuse. I cut him off, waving my hand back and forth apologetically. No, I mean, well, physically, because when you shook my hand when we first met, they were really cold. And you didn't seem to really be bothered by the cold weather outside. I said as he nodded. Oh, right. You wouldn't know. He said, rubbing his chin. He looked back over to me and smiled. Well, I was in a bit of an accident when I first got here. Well, I can't say it was really an accident, more of an experiment gone wrong. The experiment made my body go down about negative 7 degrees Celsius. So that happened. Oh, and that's why actually everyone calls me Dr. Iceberg, he said, smiling a little. I chuckled. But wouldn't that kill you or something? I asked. Nah, not really. It just makes my life a little bit harder. It does have its perks, though. Seeing how the cold doesn't really bother me as much as others. I do have to be careful, he said. Bro, you need to come here immediately. It is too hot around here. Dang. The man needs to be near me so he can it's like a little AC. It's like a like a pillow AC. For real, pillow AC, girl. Oh goodness. Anyway. Okay. I nodded. So do you need to get warm? I asked. Not really. I can if I want to, though. Like I can hold someone's hand to steal their warmth, he said, taking off his gloves and grabbing my hand. What? I blushed slightly as I felt how cold his hands are. It's like holding an ice cube. Why is this colder than when I first shook his hand? I can feel people's heat when I make skin-to-skin contact with them, though. It might only bring my body temperature up a degree or so. Then, again, it will probably be more if I ever do it more than just a handshake or do anything that could bring up my temperature. He said, looking at me with a smile as I looked puzzled. Like? Exercising? Girl, you know dang well what he's talking about. I asked as he seems to find my confusion amusing. Yes, exercising is one of the ways, he said, chuckling as I pouted, still not completely understanding. We both seemed to fall into a comfortable silence as I listened to the sound of the truck engine. I wonder if the reason his hands weren't so cold is that he didn't have gloves on. I thought as I watched Dr. Iceberg slip his glove back into his hand. They were probably custom made for him. Man, I really thought his name was just Dr. Iceberg, but it seems that it's just a code name. I looked at Dr. Iceberg as he seemed lost in his thoughts. I wonder what his real name is. I looked around the interior of the truck, seeing a little window that seemed to be frosted over. I smiled a little, feeling calm, only to be snapped out of my thoughts as the truck abruptly stopped. Seems like we're here, Dr. Iceberg said, unbuckling his seatbelt as I followed suit. Come on, let's go, he said as I followed him out of the truck. Where are we? I asked as he knocked on the truck, making the engine start again. We walked around the truck as I noticed we were near the ocean and there was a little outpost near the water. I can't tell you, but we're meeting Dr. GIYS here and then to a ship we go, he said, walking towards the outpost as I followed. My goodness. We made it into the outpost as I looked at it. It's really small. It doesn't seem like a place for testing. Dr. Iceberg opened the door, then froze. What the hell are you doing here? He yelled, walking into the outpost as I followed, seeing Dr. GIYS sitting at a little desk looking at some papers. This seems cozy. I looked over to Dr. Iceberg as he was grabbing someone by the collar and yelling at them. Hey! Someone yelled behind me as I jumped only to be pulled into a hug. Nice to see you again. I looked up, seeing Dr. Bright. Oh! I said in surprise. What the hell? I'm sorry. It's hard. Dr. Iceberg yelled, looking over at us, revealing the person that he was holding by the collar to be Dr. Clef. Sup, little lady? He said, smiling as I noticed he didn't have his hat on, as it was laying in the middle of the room, probably knocked off when he was grabbed by Dr. Iceberg. Dr. Bright let go of me and smiled at Dr. Iceberg. What? Dr. Bright asked as I walked over to Dr. Clef's hat. Why are you here? Dr. Iceberg asked. We came to see YN because... Oh, wait, we can't tell you because you're only clearance level 2. Damn. Dr. Bright said, smirking as I picked up Clef's hat. What did you just say? Dr. Iceberg said, calm down, Bergie. Dr. Clef said, patting Dr. Iceberg's head. Don't call me Bergie, you asshat. Iceberg snapped. Is that any way to talk to your superior? Dr. Clef said, waving his finger. I'm guessing that Dr. Clef is a higher leader than Dr. Iceberg? Dr. Iceberg glared. I'll treat you as a superior once you act like one, Dr. Iceberg said. I walked over to Dr. GIYS as he stood up. Oh, hello again, YN. He said, noticing me as I smiled. Yes, hello, I said as I looked back over to the commotion. You guys aren't supposed to be together, right, Dr. Bright? What was it? Dr. Clef and What was it? Dr. Clef and Dr. Bright are not allowed to interact without the presence of a responsible administrator. What? Dr. Iceberg said as a door opened. And that would be me. Hi, YN. Dr. Glass said, walking through the door with Dr. Gerald following close behind. Why is everyone here? Why are all of you here? Dr. Iceberg yelled, growling as Dr. Glass smiled. Oh, we're here to watch over YN for reasons that doesn't concern you, Dr. Glass said. I looked at him as he waved his hands dismissively, trying not to make me that worried/suspicious. What could this be about? Dr. Iceberg looked at Dr. Gear as he nodded, probably confirming something I didn't know. Why is Dr. Gerald here? He asked. Oh, I came along because I heard we'll all be traveling to Site 17 after this, he said nervously as he noticed me. As I noticed he had a few bandages wrapped around his neck and arms. I bet he got hurt again. I shot him a kind smile as he blushed. Oh, great. We got the guy who's gonna kill us all. Dr. Iceberg was caught off as soon as I heard a bolt horn honk. Everyone stopped and looked over to the window, seeing a boat. Well, I guess that's our cue to get going, Dr. Glass said as he grabbed a coat. I guess we're leaving? I walked over to Dr. Clef as he slipped a coat over his normal clothes. Here, I said, extending my hand holding his hat. He smiled and bent down a little, silently asking me to place his hat on his head. I flipped the hat in the right direction as I placed it on his head, making sure it was tightly secure so it wouldn't fall off. There you go, I said as he chuckled at my shortness. Thanks, little lady, he said as he grabbed another jacket and threw it over my head. Ugh. I said in surprise and pulled the jacket off of my head and slipped it on, presuming it was for me. I turned around and quickly followed Dr. Iceberg, who was not wearing a coat, and Dr. GIYS, who was wearing a coat, out of the room, with the others following. That's a big butt. Bro, what the fuck? I thought, giggling, seeing a boat that was pretty big and looked to be like a military boat. We walked up to the ship as they let a wooden board down for us to walk up on. This doesn't look safe. We all walked up the wooden board and onto the boat. SCP 1836 is close off the coast, and it will take about an hour to get close to it, a crewman said to Dr. GIYS, as Dr. Glass grabbed my hand and sat me down by the side of the boat. Please stay here, he said, and walked back over to the little group of doctors talking about the SCP. I sat there and looked at my hands. Well, this is boring. I looked over to the side of the boat and down the water, seeing the waves hit the wall of the boat. I wonder how cold it would feel if I fell into the water. We shouldn't be wishing this for ourselves. I shivered slightly, already feeling a little cold just from being outside. Cold? I jumped and looked over, seeing Dr. Clef sitting next to me. Oh, yeah, a little, but it can't really be helped, I said as he smiled. Yeah, I guess you're right. I wonder how Dr. Iceberg can stand it. I know he has a cold body temperature, but still, it's fucking freezing out there, he said, just trying to make conversation with me. I smiled and nodded. Yeah, it's pretty amazing, I said, smiling as he frowned a little. Want to know something amazing? He asked. What? I asked. I have a third eye, he said, smiling. What? I repeated, looking at him strangely. Come on, don't look at me like that. That's probably not the strangest thing you're gonna see here, he said, chuckling. Wait, I don't see a third eye, I asked, looking at his forehead as he chuckled again. He faced his back to me and slowly lifted his hair on his neck, showing a closed eye. What the fuck? It opened, showing it was brown colored. What? This is what it's supposed to look like. That is terrifying. Just imagine you sleep with this guy, right? You sleep to the side of the bed, okay? You guys are sleeping like, like behind each other and shit. When you look at his neck, all of a sudden you just see an eye just directly staring at you, just like bah, and you're just like, what the fuck? Like, oh hell no. Oh hell no. This is when I say no, it got to stop. It got to stop. No. And oh my gosh, this is okay. Oh goodness. Can you see out of it? I asked as he turned around and smiled. It wouldn't be much of an eye if I couldn't, now would it? He said, don't show her that creepy shit, Dr. Iceberg said. Dr. Clef chuckled as the third eye appeared on his forehead. What's too creepy for you, Bergie? He asked. He can move it. I blinked a couple of times as Dr. Clef and Dr. Iceberg looked over to me. Why do you keep it on your neck if you can move it? I asked as he shrugged. Just to kind of look more normal. Then again, I do like how I can watch my back and front at the same time, he said, smiling. Dr. Iceberg groaned slightly as Dr. Bright walked over to us and sat down on the other side of me. Pfft, normal, says the guy who can repulse women by just walking into a room. Dr. Bright said as I looked at him. What? I asked. Right, you don't know. Well, our friend, Dr. Alto Clef, here can pretty much repulse any woman with just a glance with his fugly face. Dr. Bright said, I don't really think he's repulsive. I said, that's because you're weird. Dr. Bright said, mean? Wait, isn't Alto Clef a music note? He is also a profuse liar and no one knows his real name. Dr. Iceberg said, sitting down next to Bright. Hey, how do you know my name isn't Alto Clef? Dr. Clef said, that's because it's a music note, Dr. Clef. Dr. Glass said, sitting next to him, but you won't tell us your real name, so we have to work with what we have. Dr. Gerald said, sitting next to Dr. Iceberg, when someone lies so much, they tend to lose sight of who they are. If Dr. Clef had been lying his whole life, who's to say he even knows what he's saying anymore, who he is? Maybe even Dr. Clef doesn't even remember his own name. Or maybe Dr. Clef never even had one in the first place. I said as Dr. Gears walked over. Or he's just an idiot. Dr. Iceberg said. I giggled. Well, yeah, I'm just making theories. It's kind of a double-edged sword, though. People who lie so much soon get tangled in the lies they webbed around them. Soon they lose themselves and put up the act so they can keep their lies going. They make personas for themselves and use them to convey their emotions they can't anymore. Then again, they aren't bound by what they are. Liars tend to not care how much they lie. The only thing they care about is how people see them. But then they can't get close to anyone because those people will see what they truly are. Liars want to have the perfect form of themselves. In my mind, there's no good or bad. Neither do I see the point in people thinking there's any sense in the word perfect. There is no perfect. It's a pipe dream. So when people lie, they show a better version of themselves. They chase the idea of perfection of themselves so people will like them. Then again, they push people away from themselves, not wanting to see who they truly are, or in the chance the liar could get hurt. Maybe even the liar doesn't want to be perfect. They might just be trying to protect themselves from self-hurt. I said as they all looked at me. What are you, Dr. Glass? Dr. Bright joked as I didn't know how silent Dr. Clef has become. Nope. I got no physiologically I'm saying it wrong, but sorry, degree. I've just been around a lot of people. I know about how people act in certain situations and certain confrontations. I've also seen a lot of people break under pressure. Some people use humor to divert the pressure of the situation, or they can detach their emotion toward the situation. There is always a cause and effect. You can't have an effect without a cause. I don't really think Dr. Clef can cause an effect without a cause. If he could, he would be a god. I joked. I am God now, bitch. Dr. Clef yelled as my eyes widened. What did you start? Dr. Iceberg said, looking at me as I giggled. Everyone began to make idle conversation as Dr. Clef and Dr. Bite were arguing over who was the real god as I leaned back on the boat, just leaning to the waves as the waves hit the side of the boat. Dr. Gears has already detached his emotions in this situation, and Dr. Bright and Dr. Clef has used humor to help. But then again, some people are just made to deal with these situations. I looked over to Dr. Glass as he notices and smiled. Or maybe he just uses tools to help him get along with what he does. And some just have too much to deal with to really think about what they're doing. I looked over to Dr. Gerald as he fumbled with some papers in his hands. I sighed. Some people will break. I looked over to Dr. Iceberg as he fiddled with his gloves, angry. Which is a catalyst for these things. It will break you, Dr. Iceberg. The stress sneaks up on you. I could feel how tired my body felt. Maybe I could catch some sleep. They did say it would be about an hour. I pulled the hood of the jacket over my head and fell into darkness. Dr. Clef's POV. I'm fucking immortal. Tell me, what doesn't make me a god? Dr. Bright asked. I have 3 eyes, and you're immortal just because of that 2-cent fucking necklace. I yelled back. That's probably a fucking birth defect, he said as I frowned. I watched the ship move past icebergs and snow slowly starting to fall. So, is she right? Dr. Gerald asked, stopping me and Dr. Bright's arguing as I gave him a look. What do you think? I asked as he shrugged. She sounds like she's onto something. He said, little lady got me more figured out than most. I'll give her that. But if I was that easy, then Dr. Glass would have me under his thumb. Still, I need to be on my toes. I said, as I looked over, seeing YN sleeping peacefully. I smiled and closed my eyes. I need to keep her away from Connie. He'll fall just as easily as me. He has too much pulled into the Foundation. It will probably cause problems. But O5 Council has probably already informed him about her. Second, when we get there, he'll be waiting. Damn, Connie, you probably already know everything. You know everything about now. I sighed and leaned my head back. Distract him long enough to get him dead or gone. Or for him to lose interest. I opened my eyes and smiled. That's kind of crazy, but okay. How long is this chapter? Jesus! YN stream. I walked down a road as I saw a man sitting on the bench. Hello? I called out as the man turned around. Finally I meet the woman of the hour, he said, smiling at me. What? He was dressed in a Cold War era business suit. This foundation calls me SCP-990, but I would prefer Richard, he said as I walked over. He smiled at me. Sit down. I don't bite. He said as I sat down. You're much prettier than I expected. You're Ellen Wyan Ellen, right? He asked as I nodded. This is weird. I looked into the distance, watching asteroids slowly descend on the land, but in complete silence. No sounds rang out. I looked back at Richard as he smiled. I never thought I would meet you. In my lifetime, that is. He said, why am I here? You're an SCP, so you must want something. I asked. Straight to the point. I like that. To be honest, I just wanted to meet you because I like you. Well, all the anomalies like you, he said, rubbing my head like a little kid. All of the anomalies. I also wanted to warn you. Dr. Whatever is a very determined man when he sets his mind to it. Richard said, losing his childish demeanor, becoming 100% serious. That name again. This foundation isn't good and will use you for your properties for their own gain. Some people are going to do whatever they can do to sink their fangs into you. If that's good or bad, it's up to you, he said as I rubbed my hand. Properties? I asked. Richard smiled and took off his hat and placed it on my head, making the hat tilt to one side because it didn't fit me. You'll find out when you arrive at site 17, he said as he leaned towards me, placing a small kiss on top of his hat, making me blush. Don't give up, he whispered softly. End of dream. We like Richard. Anyways, I jolted awake, hearing a boat horn as the boat came to a stop. Ah, fuck! I rubbed my head, trying to remember the dream as all the doctors. Richard? I muttered, making Dr. Gear look at me. Did you say something? He asked as I stood up. What is SCP-990? I asked as he walked over to me. I forgot how tall he is. I looked up at him. What did he tell you? He asked. I noticed that everyone was now looking at me. Shouldn't have opened my mouth. I felt a little pit in my stomach. Dr. Blah is a very determined man when he sets his mind to it, I said as Dr. Clef muttered, damn it, Connie, under his breath. Connie? Anything else? Dr. Glass asked. He said something about properties, and I'll find out when I make it to Site 17. I said. Everyone looked at each other as Dr. Gerald giggled nervously. At least we know we're going to survive this exertion, he said. You would say that, Dr. Gluff said. There's no guarantee we're all going to survive. SCP-990 only mentions her so we could all die here. Well, except for you, Dr. Bright, Dr. Gear said, looking at Dr. Bright. Well, something's fun about to happen, Dr. Gluff said, walking over to the edge of the boat. I looked at him as he looked around. Where's this fucking iceberg so we can get this over with? Freezing my baby maker off, he said. Baby maker? Does he mean... Oh! I blushed a little as a boat member walked over to him. SCP-1836, or Mother in the Ice, is right in front of us, they said as Dr. Bright grabbed me and pushed me to the front of the boat. Should I be worried? I asked him. Probably not. You should be. He said. I looked forward, seeing an iceberg as it looked like it was heading right for us. That iceberg's getting awfully close. The iceberg stopped right in front of the boat as everyone held their breath. Hello? I asked as the iceberg suddenly started to break and crack open. A woman frozen in the ice except for her head. Holy! State your business, she said as I looked at Dr. Clef, who was standing next to me. We're here to talk to you, he said. Silence! I was not talking to you, she yelled, making the water shake. Now, answer me, wise one, she demanded. Wise one? Me? Ha! We're here to talk to you, I said, staring into her light blue eyes that looked frozen over. The woman paused as she looked back to me. I will answer a few questions. In return, you will leave these waters, she said. All right, I said as Dr. Iceberg handed me the papers with questions on it. Why me? Someone else asked this weird ice lady questions. I looked at the paper and started to read. Why are you protecting these waters? I asked as she frowned. People poach these waters without the permission of my people. I'm here so those people get what's coming to them, she said. I nodded. Why don't you have hands? I asked. Rude, she huffed. Just reading off the paper, sorry, I said as she shook her head. It was a part of the ritual I went through, to become something that could make a difference. I gave up everything to protect these waters of poachers. It's the only reason for my existence. You can relate, can't you, IN? She said, I never told you my name, and frankly, I find it kind of creepy, you know that. You know it, I said in a calm manner as I heard someone giggle, but quickly covered it with a cough. The woman looked at me fondly. When you came to these waters, I knew. Everything in the water can feel it and yearns to be closer, she said, smiling. But I cannot let you fish in these waters, but I do not mean you harm, unlike others, she said. No more questions. Get out of these waters before I change my mind, she said. Wait! I yelled as she glared at me. Wait, I already told you. You want fish in these... I cut her off as I reached out to her. Let me see your arm, I demanded as she gave me a weird look, but I could feel the other doing the same. She looked at me as she slowly removed her frozen arm so I could see her hand was gone. I wish I could take this burden from you. I grabbed her cold hand as I shivered at the cold limb. Sometimes Sometimes people can forget the feeling of being touched by someone, whether it be good or bad. Just know, you should never forget that feeling that made you feel. I said, leaning down, pressing my lips to her nubs. Be strong and be wise, woman in the ice. I muttered into her skin as she suddenly pulled away from me and sank back into the iceberg as it closed. I stood in silence, trying to comprehend what she just said. She told me that the very seas could sense me. Why, though? Why didn't she just kill us? I felt someone grab my shoulder as I jumped and looked to my side, seeing Dr. GIYS. Come on, he said as he started to lead me over to my seat. Why did she say that? Dr. GIYS sat me down as the ship started to move. Well, that happened. I sighed, deciding to let it go, and smiled as Dr. GIYS sat down next to me. Yeah, seems so. You are very interesting. You're a very interesting character, Miss YN, he said, muttering the last part as we watched the other doctors mingle with each other. Okay, mingle wingle. I leaned back and taking in the smell of the sea. So, are we going to Site 17 now? I asked. Yes, he responded simply. This might be a weird question, but who is blank? You know what? We're going to call him K. Who is Dr. K? I asked as Dr. GIYS paused. He is an interesting personnel of the Foundation. He is very valuable at the same time, he said. So like Dr. Gluff and Dr. Bright? I asked. Dr. Glass chuckled a little, overhearing the conversation. Yes, Dr. GIYS said. So why do you think I'm being warned of him? I asked as Dr. GIYS paused, thinking, you are a weird being. Most D-class are dead by the first week. You, however, have experimented many extremely dangerous SCP with a failure rate of over 90%. You have experienced many things people have not survived through. It's impressive, he said. I closed my eyes, taking in what he said, and smiled. So, I'm either really lucky or an anomaly all among myself, I said. Yes. What is the most plausible I said, yes. That is the most plausible option. He said, well, fuck. What are they gonna do if I'm an SCP? Will they kill me, or maybe they'll dissect me? I looked to all of the doctors as they talked. I felt someone pat my head as I looked over, seeing Dr. GIYS. Don't look so worried. SCP stands for Secure, Contain, Protect. If you're an anomaly, you won't be harmed unless necessary, he said as he removed his hand. Was that his way of comforting me? I couldn't help but giggle softly. Dr. Gerald walked over to us. Why giggle all of a sudden? He asked, sitting down next to me. Oh, it's nothing, I said. Oh, come on. If it can make you giggle, then it can make me. And I'll take anything to brighten my day up, he said. Quick, think of a joke. Why do women's underwear have flowers on them? I asked as Dr. Gluff walked over to us. All right, you got me on the hook. Why? He asked. In loving memory of all the faces that were buried there, I said, completely monotone. Dr. Clough's face sparked with realization as Dr. Gerald buried his face in his hands, laughing. Ah, bad joke. Never thought you were the one for dirty jokes, Dr. Clough said as Dr. GIYS just watched us. Blame my father. He loved those jokes. I know more than you would expect, I said as he shook his head. The boat stopped as we reached land. Damn, were we talking for an hour? Dr. GIYS got up as I followed. Dr. Gerald, come on, Dr. Clough said as Dr. Gerald was still giggling. Right, sorry, he said, getting up as we all made our way to the wooden plank that originally got us on the boat. We made our way down the plank. All right, Site 17, here we come, Dr. Bright yelled as we walked over to a truck that me and Dr. Iceberg arrived in. I wonder if I'll meet Dr. K. We all got onto the truck as I sat down and buckled my seatbelt. Everyone sat down as I looked out the window, seeing the same frozen window. Maybe I should fall asleep. I got nothing else to do, and I might see Richard again. I leaned back as the truck started to move, and I started to drift off. This is the longest chapter I've ever read in my damn life. Look how long that is. And look, I read all of that. And that was in one damn chapter. This could be dissected into 2 or 3 damn chapters. I've never read this damn long. But, well, actually, I have read this. I've read like almost an hour. But, anyways, what do you guys think is gonna happen next? Let me know in the comments down below what I think is gonna happen next. Is Dr. K is planning something very, very bad. That if even an SCP is literally getting in our dreams and be like, hey, sister, so, you're in danger. You equals danger. I don't think I'd feel too happy to know that I was in danger, especially from an SCP. That's a little bit concerning. I hope we see Richard again, because big W on Richard. Big W. He could have came earlier, but you know what? W Richard. But anywho, I do hope you guys enjoyed though. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more amazing videos, guys. I did not expect this chapter to be this long. I thought it was gonna be maybe like 10-20 minutes. Now, bro, a whole 40 damn minutes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. But you know what I did love? Like, the contemplation, bro. The contemplation. Like, I guess a little bit. I like the part where the dream was, and I also like the part where they were talking to the ice lady as well. I like that part too. But yeah, I mean, I wanted to get to know about her dad in this. Did he go get the milk and just never came back? Or did he just get kidnapped or something? Or was he an SCP himself? Yeah, we're gonna find out in the next futuristic video for Yandere SCP listener up in here. I will see you, darlings, later in the future in the next video of most likely Mr. Roofman. It'll be coming up soon enough, peeps, soon enough. Anyways, your girl's gotta go. Bye and peace.